hear this. That is the funniest thing I've heard all year. But Shenling wasn't laughing. She just stared at me hard, her eyes dead serious. She had a feeling I wasn't kidding. I really wasn't. Wiping the smile off my face, I started counting down. The grin on Brother Bao's face froze. Everyone's laughter died. They looked around at each other, starting to feel like something was off. That 30-story tower was Blue Bay Complex's landmark building and home to most of the guards' families. When I hit 1, Brother Bao finally roared, "All bark and no bite. Quit your tricks. Take him down." But it was already too late. The second I finished counting, I unleashed my power, not targeting anything within arm's reach, but pushing my power's range to its absolute max, full throttle. I aimed at that massive building 100 yards away and thought, refresh. The whole world seemed to go silent. Before hundreds of horrified eyes, that 30-story skyscraper started flickering like a bad TV signal, glitching like crazy. His outline began to blur and fade. In just 1 second, the building and everything inside it vanished into thin air. Only an empty foundation remained, as if it had never existed. Everyone's faces froze, turning blank with shock and indescribable terror. Brother Bao's men completely broke down. They dropped their weapons and fled screaming in all directions, as if escaping the apocalypse. Brother Bao himself slumped to the ground, his face ashen, lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. His prized 200-man guard unit disintegrated instantly. Shenling and the Blade Squad behind her didn't break down, but every face showed nothing but shock and terror. Shenling's hand gripping her blade trembled slightly. She looked at me, her gaze completely changed. She was no longer looking at a capable survivor, but at a god walking the earth. I slowly lowered my hand and walked up to Brother Bao, who lay paralyzed on the ground. He looked up at me as if I were a monster, his body shaking like a leaf. "Now, can I bring my people in?" Brother Bao nodded frantically, scrambling aside to clear the path. I ignored him, turned to those behind me, and said to Scarface and the others, who were just as stunned, "Into the city." Only then did my team snap out of their daze. They looked at me, their eyes filled with fervent worship. They knew their leader was strong, but they'd never imagined this level of power. Erasing an entire building. What kind of power was that? Following a leader like this, surviving the apocalypse wouldn't be a problem. Our group drove into Blue Bay residences. While everyone watched in awe, no one dared stand in our way. Shenling and her Blade Squad followed silently behind us, like they were escorting us. I knew from that day on, Blue Bay residences had a new owner. After settling in at Blue Bay, the first thing I did was settle accounts. Brother Bao and his top enforcers, who'd ruled through fear, were locked up. I didn't kill them. I just stripped them of their powers. After evolving, my refresh ability could now work on living things. I could refresh a person's body, restoring them to perfect health. And naturally, I could also refresh the power core inside them, resetting it to before they ever awakened. When Brother Bao went from an Earth-type user to a helpless, overweight man, he completely broke. As for Shenling and her Blade Squad, I chose to win them over. They were real fighters. They still had their conscience, a rare find in the apocalypse. Right in front of Shenling, I refreshed a Tang blade dulled from combat, then refreshed a box of antibiotics about to expire, turning them into brand new meds. Shenling watched all this, and finally got it. My ability wasn't spatial storage, and it wasn't repair. It was something she couldn't comprehend, almost like a law of nature. A power so deep it touched the fundamental laws themselves. She stayed quiet for a long time, then finally bowed to me. "Blade Squad, from today, we follow your orders." With the Blade Squad on my side, I truly controlled Blue Bay residences. I set new rules. Everyone, powered or not, got food if they worked. With my endless supplies, I quickly won them over. At the same time, I'd cleared out all the troublemakers in the community. Under my management, Blue Bay had been completely transformed, thriving and vibrant. My parents looked at me with pride and satisfaction in their eyes. They never asked what my ability actually was. They only knew their son had grown up and that he'd become someone everyone could rely on. Once the base was running smoothly, I started thinking about something deeper. What exactly were the limits of my ability? I'd refreshed instant noodles. I'd refreshed entire buildings. So could I refresh a living person? I found a guard who'd been scratched by a zombie in combat. Someone who had already begun to turn. Everyone thought he was beyond saving.